Welcome back to another episode of the Paddle and Fin Noobs podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Susie Q.
And I'm your other host, Sean.
Welcome back, and you can see my lovely background here.
Man, you got some swanky places that you stay for these tournaments.
I know, it's pretty bougie today. It's actually not real. I'm actually recording from a hotel room right now because tomorrow I've got a tournament. I'm up in Wisconsin today, pre-fishing for a grassroots club, KBL. We're fishing on Rock Lake tomorrow, so I did some pre-fishing today, and it was pretty interesting. Never fished this lake before, pretty crystal clear, and caught a bunch of small fish, nothing real big. Caught a pike, a giant crappie. And yeah, so it's going to be pretty interesting to see what happens tomorrow. So
nice. Yeah, and then you were saying the weather just sounds really goofy too. I'm sure. Like, it almost sounds like to me that would put them in a funk. But if you're catching them, then they're obviously not minding it too bad.
Right. Well, I'm with what I was catching today. I'm thinking it was mainly the bucks because word is they were sitting on beds last week. Water temps were probably in like the mid 60s, higher 60s. And, this week we could see the beds. Nobody's home. And it's lower 60s now. It got up to about maybe 63 today. Wind was blowing. I know yesterday the wind was really blowing. And then today it was, I think, gusting up to about 17, sustained at about like 10 or 11. Tomorrow's supposed to be a lot more calmer. So whether or not that changes the bite, though, we'll see. So, but, regardless, I'm up here in Wisconsin. It's beautiful up here. Weather's nice, high the 70s. So can't complain too much.
Yeah, sounds like it's going to be a nice day for the tournament anyway.
That's right. That's right. So we've got an awesome guest for our show today. Another awesome lady that is. I first met this lady at one of the women's event. I met her first, not at the last women's event, but the one previous when we were up in, I think it was Wisconsin, when we were up at La Crosse. So if you guys all would help me welcome the one and only Mrs. Cilla Johnson.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, I'm super excited. It's my first time with you guys. So
yeah.
It's the first one of the year. I haven't done any podcasts in a while, so this is great.
Awesome.
I'm happy to be here. Yeah.
Well, welcome. Thanks for coming on the show with us. So I thought I'd give you the chance to kind of introduce yourself, tell us where all you're from, how you got into kayak fishing, where you're at with it now, and all that fun stuff.
Sure. So I live right outside of DC in Northern Virginia. So I did not grow up here. I'm a Navy brat. I've kind of lived, I'm half Filipino. I've lived in the Philippines. I've lived in San Diego. I've lived in Norfolk, born in Florida, and back to the Philippines. I moved to Virginia from the Philippines when my parents were divorced or got divorced. And my mom started dating my now stepfather. And they lived in Front Royal, Virginia, which is on the other side of the tip of Virginia. And so I grew up. He taught me how to fish. I was about 15 then, taught me how to fish the Shenandoah River for smallmouth. Live bait. I had to catch my own hellgrammites. I had to, nad toms, night crawlers, whatever it was. We caught our own. My dad used to take the hellgrammites and let him pinch on his ears and wear them as earrings. I would never do that. I would never do that. No. So yeah, I just kind of fell in love with it then. And then, here I am, just turned my last year in my 40s. So I won't say the number. Like 2 days ago. And it's just something that I've always liked to do. With my ex-husband, we would go out and go fishing. Then we divorced, and my husband now is not an outdoorsy person. He was an athlete, and so I would go hit ponds and do all those things by myself. And I knew the chance of ever having a boat was probably never going to happen because no way he was going to do that. So I would just happen to be on social media one day, and some friends of mine were fishing in a lake you're not supposed to be fishing in. And I'm like, first of all, how are you getting in there? Because there's monsters in there. And they're like, well, we park over here and we have these kayaks and we go into the creek and get access to the lake. And I'm like, kayaks, brilliant. Like, I can totally do that because I don't need a big boat to be able to do that. I probably could have got a boat or something. So I told my husband that I wanted for my birthday that was coming up a fishing kayak. I did not know anything about fishing kayaks. I just knew, there's this kayak. He went to Dick's. He got me a little 10-foot sit-in Pelican. It was 30 pounds. So I was like, yeah, I can handle it myself. And it had a rod holder. So I was like, yes. And then I joined some kayak fishing groups online, and then they wanted to take me snakehead fishing, and I went out, and they have a Predator and a Jackson and a couple of Jacksons. And, they're all standing up, and I'm sitting in this thing. There's no banks because everything is just like marshes and stuff. So trying to get out to go to the bathroom was not going to happen. So on top of trying to have to go to the bathroom the whole day, they're standing, and they're like, there's a lot of sight fishing when it comes to snakehead fishing, and I'll go into some of that snakehead fishing in a bit, but they're like, oh, look at that one, throw over there. I'm like, I can't see anything. I'm sitting feet down in the water. Like, they're just not going to happen, and they're paddling back, and their paddles are so, their paddling is so smooth, and they're trekking so straight, and, they're going 3 times the distance I'm going, and I'm like, what the heck? So that lasted about 5 months before I upgraded. I happened to be going out with a friend of mine at that time who just was doing his maiden voyage on his Vibe kayak. And I was like, okay, well, that's not a crazy price for it. I didn't know much at that time anyway. I knew I wasn't going to go out and spend $5,000 on anything at that point. So I'm like, I saw the weights and I was like, oh yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yep.
Funny because that's where I'm at now. But so I had that for, I had that for a while. There wasn't a lot of women, especially in this area, out there. Christina, obviously, Susie, and, Rebecca Golden at the time, reached out to her, rest in peace, wonderful woman. Chatted with them a lot, just kind of reached out to other women anglers that were doing, the kayak fishing thing. I kind of, got on the Vibe team pretty quick. I was there for a few years. I made it over to Bonafide. And just recently last year, I moved over to Jackson Kayaks because I was wanting to maybe go into Hobie. I went to ICAST last year, worked at Torquedo Booth, one of my sponsors, and Jameson Redding's Jackson NAR was there. And I was like, wow, like the tri-track thing, the deck space that I need because snakeheads are just, I didn't have that in some of my kayaks. And so I said, that's, I think that's the route I want to go. And there, the VP of, one of the VPs at Jackson, Richard Penny, was there. He's like, well, you just let us know what you want. Like, if you want to come over, we'll make it happen. And then I ran into the dugout folks. And so now I am proudly representing Jackson Kayaks through Dugout Bait and Tackle, which I'm extremely happy about.
Awesome.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, really good friends with all those folks, and obviously Christine and Emily and a bunch of the ladies that we do, WFF with Women's Fishing Federation. So quick little story about how I got to where I am. So yeah, my kayak empty weighs 140 pounds now. So
wow, I didn't realize the NAR was that heavy.
Yeah, it is. And I strictly trailer. I just got a Yak Attack, one of the new carts, so I'm super excited.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
There are a few snakehead spots that I do have to cart in, and my husband lost our wilderness cart because he went to this lake and hid it in the woods thinking no one would get it. And someone got it.
Oh, no.
It was in really light grass, and I was like, that cart costs $250.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And that NAR is not going to work with a sea tug, which is what, my little spare one that I had. So I was happy. I'm really happy that the new Yak Attack. So I'm excited to get that out so I can be able to cart when I want to and get some of those really back areas of the Snakehead.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
Here I am. And what I said I wasn't going to be in, but yeah.
I know, right? Crazy how life works out like that in mysterious ways.
I know. I like it. The wet launching from a trailer is just so much faster now, too. Especially tournament day. I did my first tournament a few weeks ago, and I was like getting there early and just having everything rigged up and just throwing it in the water.
Dumping it in. Yeah, that sounds really nice.
And not having to lift it up into my truck bed after the hours of all day. Man, I've been missing out. So
yeah, it saves your back. It saves so much time, and it's pretty nice.
It is. Yeah, big fan.
Yeah.
So so that's a little bit about me. I do fish, freshwater. I'll do a little saltwater when I go down to Florida to visit. I will fish for bass in the winter season. I live off the Potomac River, which is a tidal water. A lot different because the fishing conditions change every 30 minutes, and you kind of know. It's full of hydrilla, mostly shallow. Just kind of knowing a lot of spatter docks or pads, and water willow. So the majority of the warm weather, I'm fishing and targeting snakeheads unless I'm in a tournament. So
very cool.
Interesting. Yeah. So you definitely have a very rapidly changing and variety of environments.
Yes. Very much so. Very much.
I feel like we could do an episode on tidal fishing alone, just because that's like a mystery to me. Every time I just fished a tournament last weekend on the Chesapeake Bay, like in the Havre de Grace area in Maryland, and they're all like, I was in a group of boats fishing, and then all of a sudden everybody left, and I was like, well, where'd they go? And here it's because they knew the tide was changing. Yeah. And I didn't know. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like, I guess I'll go over here now.
Key to it is really knowing where the channels are. And the channels can be this deep within some grass or whatever, and if there is any laydowns or anything off of that, they will reload off that all day long. There's a spot that it could just be like 2 feet of water, but they will cruise down there, and there's this big log that lays on the bank, and they'll just hang out there. And I'll throw a Ned rig, right, with a little bit of weight on it, top of the channel in front of that log, and I'll just let the tide just pull it.
Oh yeah.
Just yank them out of there.
Interesting.
So, and what's working for you, great for 1 minute, 30 minutes later, it's going to be different, especially when the tide's
different.
So
right.
Yeah.
Well, and that there was a gentleman I was fishing with who was trying to explain it to me, and I'm like, I don't have enough brain space right now. Like, he's like, oh, it's better to fish the incoming low tide than the outgoing high. And I was like, well, wait, I thought all incoming is low. And he's like, no. And then one tide's higher than the next, and I was like,
yeah, tidal swings. If you look at a tides app, and if the mountain on the tides app is real steep, it's pushing a lot of water in and pushing a lot of water out, and it sparks a lot of movement, right, with the fish. But if it's a slow, it's not pushing as much in. And also, quick little thing that I like to tell people is when you're fishing, we have just huge areas off the banks or even the tree lines that are full of just lots of vegetation, not subaquatic, but just like the bigger ones. And these bass, I mean, I can catch them in 6 inches of water. They'll just keep going up. So in high tides, you want to fish, when the tide is moving and they're coming up and the water's rising at that grass, you want to stay on those grass, those points and everything like that, because they're gonna push up as far as you can. And when it's coming out, they're gonna come all back out. So you want to fish them, kind of there. But when it's severely low, where they, those areas they can't, they're going to be in those deeper little channels. I mean, there are bigger channels, but I tend to fish the really skinny stuff. So.
Gotcha.
So how and where do fish spawn?
There's some flats. There's some flats,
Yeah.
but they're mostly in, super shallow areas or just, it's just kind of different here. I don't really know exactly. It's just the water's moving all the time. So they got to go
Yeah.
find maybe up creeks and find where there's some flats of non-moving water. Like snakeheads, they don't want if there's any disturbance on the water from wind or anything, they don't, or current coming like that, not current as in tide, but like a lot of flow. They don't like that. They want it to be as dirty and, just they'll sunbathe. I mean, I've literally put my kayak right on top and then then they spook and hit my kayak and go over there. They're very smart and then they're really dumb. But so I think they just probably go up into the creeks, because like I said, most of this like Potomac River areas, it's pretty shallow. There's not too many deep areas, at least not where I go. So yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, very, very cool. And I know, we were talking a little bit before the show that there is a lot of misunderstanding out there about snakeheads. And, you mentioned that you had started a group, and I know we'll put that group in the show notes, but can you share what that group is and then, so that folks can go and check that out?
Yeah, it's DMV, Northern Snakehead Fishing. And DMV stands for DC, Maryland, Virginia. So I started that group quite a few years ago because everybody, even everybody outside of this area, when they're like, oh, snakeheads are, they were found here, they're horrible, except for people who like fishing. All of us want to just catch them. So, this was a fish, yes, it's invasive. So we're largemouth bass in this area. They're not a native fish. They don't eat small children. They don't walk on land to go into your pond. A lot of this is just, can they live out of water? Yes. So they are air breathers and they actually rely on air. If they do not breathe air underwater, they will drown. Or if they don't get air, they will come up like turtles. They'll drown. So they have extremely long, they have a very long body, and a lot of that swim bladder runs the length of that body. So they're able to come up like a turtle, gulp a whole bunch of air, and then go down and stay down for a while. So every now and then you'll see some bubbles, at the surface, and it's probably a snakehead, hanging out, just taking letting some air out down there. So we call it snakehead, hunting versus fishing a lot. But it's they don't do any of that. I mentioned before, I've seen pictures of bass with, baby ducks, in their gut, in their throat, and all kinds of different, like snakes, and I mean, I've opened up some. With DWR, Department of Wildlife Resources, I go electroshocking with them. We open them up. The majority of things that I see are like banded killifish. I never really see anything really big. So, they've been studying it. The first one was found in May 2004, Dogue Creek. I'm sorry, Little Hunting Run here in Alexandria, Virginia. And John Odenkirk, who is the lead fisheries biologist and snakehead specialist, he's been studying them. He went to that call, and he's been studying them ever since. So I go on some ride-alongs with them and learn a lot about the species. And it's funny when we catch them, we don't put them in a live well. We just put them in the bottom of the boat. And they're just
because they're just hanging out.
Yeah. And they have like there's some things on my Instagram, some ridiculous slime coating, which is kind of like a defense thing. That's if they're out of water, that's what helps keep them, wet, moisturized, whatever. But when you catch them, it's a mess. It's a disaster. So.
Well, I know I live in Pennsylvania on the Susquehanna. It's about 15 miles away from me. But yeah, and it's a huge thing. It's a huge topic. Like anytime you talk to anybody on the river now, it's, oh, did you hear the snakeheads are getting up this far? And like I know I was telling Susie, Conowingo Dam, which is south of me.
Yeah, they're definitely there. Yeah,
they just shut off the fish ladders because they were afraid that they were gonna go on the fish ladders up and above the dam, and that. the rumor is that that's already happened, that they're already in the our part of the Susquehanna. We have a local lake near us that there has been official. I don't know how they got into the lake, but because it's not fed by a river, a creek, or the river or anything, so it almost they must have been put there. But and in the when you see people post, initially people were like, I don't believe it, but then I actually saw pictures and people with of recognizable landmarks on this lake, and then so that starts the whole thing. Oh, well, did you kill it? And well, if you catch one, you got to kill it, and you can't just throw it on the land because it'll walk around and survive. So you got to stab it in the head, and it's just people go nuts. They really do.
They come up with it's like the Loch Ness monster sometimes. So they come up with, So yeah, there are some regulations. Initially, DWR wanted you to catch or kill everyone you catch, and if you go to the DWR website, it will tell you you can kill it. And you can, but you don't have to. Right. So now, since all this research has been happening for so many years now, they don't see this fish being any, not destructive to the ecosystem, our local ecosystem at all. So they are allowing, catch and release. But you have to catch where you catch it is where you release it. You cannot possess a live snakehead, period. End of story. You cannot. You will get a fine. It's a misdemeanor charge. There was somebody that was actually caught transporting, or I think he did transport, and I think he was boasting about it on social media, and it got back to DWR. So yeah, he had a case against him, and he got arrested for that. Yeah, so a little crazy. So yes, you can release them. Don't pick it up and go release it in your pond. That's illegal. You can kill it if you want.
I heard they're good eating too.
They are amazing. So, and they are very hard to kill. They are very resilient fish, and if you want to kill, they have the males have darker color, the females have the brighter color, and the younger ones. If you pull their fins up that go along the top and the bottom of their body, the length of it, the darker they are, those are the males, and they also have like a bigger skull. And the females have more of a flatter kind of profile face. With the males, especially the dragons, we call the double-digit ones. Anything that weighs is over 10 pounds, we call those dragons. That's what most of the people around here are on the hunt for. You have to bang their skull.
I've heard that.
And one of the things I use is this AFTCO Fish Bat.
Nice.
I don't know if you guys can hear how this is. So this is made by AFTCO, and that's
awesome.
It's got a nice rounded side, but it's also got this. See if you the nice flat side.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Is that kind of more for
the end of my when I had a stakeout pole before I had a micro power pole, or I take my my paddle apart and I'm trying to hit it with carbon shaft. Is not it's light, but it wasn't doing anything, and I just pump it like this. And so then I ran across this at West Marine. I'm like, oh yeah. So there's a lot of snakehead slime on this one. You can see.
Nice.
Yeah, that's all fun.
Heck yeah.
And they are, like I said, so they're extremely slimy. So even just trying to hold on to them, you can't put your hands in their mouth, right? If you, so one way is to bash their head in. And another way is to strip their gills. When you strip their gills, they are bleeders, and they will bleed all over your, I mean, like hemorrhaging bleeding. Like it looks like a crime scene. A lot of times, there's some Instagram pictures of their where it says like, oh my, or stories. I think it looks, or reels. I think it looks like a crime scene in here, just blood splatter everywhere. So I use, this is an interesting little thing. There's a lot of blood on it. It is a diver's clip for when people that go spearfishing or people that goes, I guess, I don't know, diving for, I guess, spearfishing. So they, they put this through the gills and the mouth of the fish, and then they clip it here, and then they clip it onto their body, and they fish with it, hoping the shark doesn't eat it. But it comes in handy for me is I put this through their through their gills out to their mouth, and then I, clip it, and I put my foot down on it, and then I bang their head out if I'm going to keep them. Or if I don't keep it and I'm going to release it, it's easier for me in pictures to be able to just, have this control, because I've lost them, just trying to take a picture or anything like that if I release them. So there's a little safety net, and I keep this like carabine to my boat. And Josh Evans, a friend of mine, Josh Evans, he saw this and he was like, "That is brilliant." He said he bought one of them too. And it's good for like crappie. You can just load crappie all around it,
Heck yeah.
And it's good for king salmon too.
There you go. Yeah, it's very sturdy. It's very sturdy. And those snakeheads aren't coming off that. And so I have a few snakehead fillets that I kind of wanted to share with you guys, because everyone says, "Oh, they taste good," but I just want you to see how thick.
Wow, that's like a steak.
These are about thick. It's kind of like cod, but yeah. So this is only like this is not even a full one side of one of the snakeheads.
Holy cow!
Yeah. So like this is the smaller part, but yeah, big, thick. And the majority of people, they throw it on some cornmeal or whatever, flour, and fry it. I found that there's so much you can do with this big, flaky, just fresh fish like this. And so I actually have another Facebook group called Snakehead Recipes, where people can get a little, more creative with their culinary talents using snakeheads.
Nice.
There's some folks in there, of Asian descent that have shared different like very cool soups or curries and stuff that they've done.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, my husband, he was not going to eat it. He's seen me fillet these things out in the driveway, and he was just disgusted. That first of all, that I even know how to do that, but thanks to my dad who taught me, and to DWR, because it's always been crappie that I've filleted, not snakehead. So I do a Korean gochujang glazed fillet. Kind of do a little cornstarch, do a light pan sear, so it gets a nice little crispy, crust on it, and then I do a little mixture of gochujang and honey, so it's like a sweet and spicy, and honey and oyster sauce, fish sauce, and and garlic, and I put all that up and then put it under the broiler and let that caramelize on top. My husband loves it.
That sounds amazing.
He's now a big snakehead eater. He loves it.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a really good fish. They grow very fast. A 1-year-old could be a good like this big in the first year. They also spawn twice a year. So usually around June, and again around August, September timeframe. So,
what's the average lifespan of them? Do you know?
I don't think they know yet. I don't think they know. Yeah, I don't think I've. That's a good question. I'm due out for a trip with them soon. I'm going to ask that question.
Yeah.
I tend to go Facebook Live when I go out with them, in our DNB Northern Snakehead group, because there's a lot of people, they'll ask questions. They don't get the opportunity to go out, but there's a lot of questions that they have. And John Odenkirk is he is an extremely smart and knowledgeable man when it comes to this or any other species out there. But these are obviously his favorites, and he goes into really big scientific details, but he knows the stuff.
That's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah,
maybe we'll have to look him up and have him on too.
Yeah,
absolutely. That'd be cool.
I can actually give him your info or give you his info. He would be happy to do that. He is an amazing. I think there's some YouTube, some other people that have done videos with him, but he is an amazing resource to chit chat about.
Okay.
Yeah, that would definitely be cool, because we're always looking to have new people on, especially something like that too, just to have like more educational stuff like that too.
Yeah, and I've learned so much from him, and I go out and questions, and it's amazing the first time I went electroshocking and to see the way that each fish reacts to the shock.
Mhm.
From the boats, some fish are, go top and they, like little dance and go away. And the little ones kind of like, snakeheads are so dense, and they react completely different than the other
Hmm.
ones. And when I go out, we're strictly looking for snakeheads. And what happens is you get a blip of them, just the underside where it's light, and they sink. They just
Wow.
sink to the bottom. So when we go out, Mike is the driver. He's really good. He runs up into the pads and runs up into the banks with the little things. And John, I usually get to stand in the middle, the front at the bow of the boat. And John and Robbie are here, and they have these big long nets. And as soon as either one of them gets a little glimpse, they're down in that mud, everything trying to find them, because they just sink and then they go off. They got to do it like that. Like sometimes I'm like, how do you even see these? Like, obviously,
Yeah. Wow.
and they're so good at it. It's just amazing to sit there and watch them do that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
It's fun.
It boggles my mind how they even figured out how to shock water without shocking themselves in the boat.
As long as they're not in the water.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
As long as they're not in the water. And one time we went up on the bank, and like it was like really almost up on the shore. John's just a rebel, and he was like, turn it off, and he jumped in the water and was like, trying to pull it out of the weeds. And I'm like, what is happening? Like to yourself. But no, he's a beast. He's really good. It is just amazing to sit and watch them. I don't think they ever need to go to the gym, just trying to, and there's a lot of disappointment. Like they see one and they're down in there, but they pull up just really thick, gross mud and leaves, which they thrive on. But yeah, it's a blast.
Wow.
So I was gonna ask. So like, if someone wanted to actually go out targeting snakehead, like, and is this a time of year thing, or where would you start? Like, what would you throw? Like, what's your best guess on that? Like, if someone wanted to say, I want to go catch my first snakehead, and they're somewhat confident they're in the right area anyway, because I mean, obviously they're not everywhere, but
I mean, you had any of the tributaries off the Potomac River is your best chance, and that's that's where you want to look at it. If you go out, if it's, again, the Potomac is tidal, so if it's high tide, they're going to be way up in that grass, way up in the grass where you can't get. You'll hear them just. It sounds like two seals back there just fighting or something. I mean, they're really loud. And then as that tide recedes, obviously it's going to push them out. They're going to be either on the bank if there's water. I mean, I've caught them in 6 inches of super clear water.
Okay.
They don't like anything with current. If there's any ripple on the top, they probably are going to go where there's not any current or any disturbance. They like to just sit and just chill. They cruise, obviously, yeah, but they find isolated pads, on the river. That's probably a good, chance. Any little pockets along the bank of, water willow. They love water willow. They love the spatter dock, which are the pads. Any of the subaquatic vegetation, SAV, the hydrilla, the milfoil, they'll sit in there. One time I was just kind of positioned on top of some hydrilla, and I was, rigging something, and I just happened to look over to the side. There's just one staring at me, and as soon as we locked eyes, it was gone. They're pretty funny. But yeah, so any of the tributaries of the Potomac, when the water dips below 50, they come from a warm area. They when the water drips below 50, they just bury down into the mud. They come out every now and then, take some breath, maybe eat a little bit, and then they just bury back down. They don't come out they're not chasing baits. They're very opportunistic. So, there's a few times that they will chase things. I've had that happen, but a lot of times they just want it to be like, so there's a lot of casting out, just retrieving, but looking somewhere else to see if they're popping their head out. Seeing if I see any bubbles, like they're breathing from underneath, or if there's fry, there's probably parents guarding it. You could throw weightless fluke or a worm or anything, Texas rigged in there. And those parents, they guard their fry, and they'll circle, and they're very, very, very protective of them. And they'll attack anything that tries to get to their babies. So, topwater frogs are great. Obviously, with frogs, once you get them down, wait to 3 to set that hook. What's really interesting is if you miss that on a frog, you get a blow up and you miss it. If it's not a bass and it's a snakehead, that's it. It's here. You just cast back out over it and then pop it slowly through that strike zone that you got to hit. Probably going to hit it again. They won't. A lot of times, last 3 or 4 times, 5 times, they'll probably go away. But you still have multiple chances to get on that through that strike zone, which is a little bit different than most fish. If you don't get any more hits, it was probably a bass. But yeah, so that makes that interesting. So yeah, that's my advice is, way up in the tributaries, know the tides, if it's early in the season, I tend to throw, Z-Man jackhammers. That's, I've caught them on jackhammers and, swim jigs, buzz baits. They like loud and noisy. So anything like that. But if you do buzz baits, you're not going to use that buzz bait ever again because they will demolish. Yeah. And number one thing is if you do ever catch a snakehead, please do not stick your hands in its mouth because they do have teeth. They're not really big teeth. They're not musky teeth. They have several like rows of just snaggletooth teeth. But they have lockjaw. And if you are targeting, like go to Bass Pro or Amazon or something, buy yourself a cheap pair of $2-3 jaw spreaders because it's really hard to get your frog or whatever back out of their mouth. You really have to get in there and pry it open, and to be able to do that. So that, and if you catch it, you're not going to keep it. Make sure you release that because you do not want to get caught with that in your live well at all. So, but my husband's friend actually was fishing a tournament and he caught one. He was just like grossed out by it. And he was like, "You guys want it?" We're like, "Yeah." So he brings it to the house and pulls out alive. It's alive. I'm like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? You don't bring this to my house alive." Oh my God. If he would have got pulled over. But he just had it in his live well. He's like, "I didn't know." I'm like, "No, get that thing away." So yeah, I had to kill it right here. Let me see what else. Yeah, I guess those are the main things.
Okay. Have you ever found any frog that is more resilient to a snakehead strike? Or because I know some of them can get torn up pretty easily, but
I haven't really. I mean, I like to tackle frogs. I mean, the only thing that you may lose is the paddle in the back, or the honkers or anything like that, like the little blades. But for the most part, I mean, it'll pull the frog off, your hooks, and you just get back. I haven't. No, I've had one of the black teckle frogs that had, it got torn up, but that's the only time I've ever thrown away.
Okay, cool.
Really throwing away. So, but I mean, I've gotten pretty good at, I think the more damage is not from the fish, it's trying to get it out of its mouth. You're probably going to damage it more by trying every angle to get it in and out. And that's the hardest part. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always put it in my net. Like, you got to have a net. And then when I get the net, I set it on the deck of my boat, and I put my foot down to lock it in because it's just they'll fly everywhere. You could lose your rod and reel. Like people use, like the orange fish grips, and they put it in, and they don't lock them to their thing, and it flips, and there's fish grips gone. Like there's quite a few, I think, snakehead going around with people's fish grips and yeah.
Like, what's that weird orange thing swimming through the water there?
Someone's bobber sank. Yeah, it is a joy, and it's like I feel blessed like that. They are here, and then I fell in love with them the first time I caught one, and I've been hooked ever since. So even in the just spreading the word that you don't have to
Right. No, and I that's one of the things I wanted to highlight, and that's why I wanted to bring that up, and I think the more awareness you can get out, because I think a lot of people are dealing with or relying on old information, where, oh yeah, this is going to completely wreck our fishery, whereas that there's been new studies and stuff that's not the case. And
some of them aren't even new studies. They're just people are not knowledgeable enough.
Right.
People are just not knowledgeable enough. And it's if people take the time to read and, like even just joining in my DMV group, like one of the rules is, are you knowledgeable about, the catch and release, or kill of the species? Because we don't want, it was people coming in there, and it was like, oh, I can't believe it, and it was, we don't want any of that. Like, it's fine. If you want to release it, it's perfectly legal, Now other states may have different rules, but in Virginia, that's the rule here.
Gotcha.
Yep.
What's the biggest snakehead you've ever caught?
Mine is 13.5
pounds.
Still, yes. Still
nice.
Yeah, 33.5 inches.
Wow.
Still trying to break that one. And I was taking somebody, good friend of mine, Wayne. I was taking him out, teaching him. And I got the spatter dock. It was like just a sandy bank, maybe a foot deep. And I was trying to take him to like this open pad, area in the pad field, but we had to go through this really skinny side of the bank. The pads don't go all the way to the bank. And I was standing up, I was moving along, and I was throwing the frog out, and I was talking to him and reeling in. And I was like, oh my God, look at those two. There was two big, like 3-pound bass just coming at my kayak. And then they went off into the things. I was like, oh my God, that was so cool. Boom. As I was retrieving and talking, it hit it. And I was like, oh my God. Well, I filmed a snakehead show with Chad Hoover a couple of weeks before. And as we were carting through my spot, I hit a little root of a tree and my kayak went like this and broke my frog rod. So I didn't have a frog rod for this trip. And so I was, one of my other tips, you need to throw brake.
I was just going to ask that, but yes, that was going to be my next question. When you're talking about a 13-pound fish, is what your tackle is. But we can. So
I had 17-pound fluoro on. I was using my chatterbait rod, and I had 17-pound fluoro on this one. And I had a frog tied up to it. So I threw that out, and I was like, just. Soon as, again, those bass went over here. As soon as I caught him, he went up in that spatter. And the spatter dock stalks are like this thick around. They're healthy. And I'm just going, please don't break. Please don't break. Oh, no. And I'm like trying to work him out of there. And Wayne's just like, he's literally like right behind me because it's a really narrow section. That's probably like 6 foot wide. Like we were going down. And I got him out of there, and that was fun. And they were camping. Him and some other friends of ours were camping at the launch that we were at. It's a regional park, and they wanted to have snakeheads. So that's why they were all out trying to get it. And that's the only one that we caught that day. So I killed it for them and let them take it, and Wayne took it back, and he's a fantastic chef as well. Took it back to the campsite and cleaned it up and filleted it up, and they ate it. So they were really happy about that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to fishing for snakehead and whatnot, now I know some different states, like, for certain species, like, trout and whatnot, there's certain harvest limits and whatnot and certain licenses. Like, you don't need any certain licenses for them. Do you even technically need a fishing license for snakehead still?
You need a fishing license to fish, period. Yeah.
Right, period.
Yeah.
But you don't need any particular...
No, you don't need a trout license or anything like that.
Or anything like that.
And they're not even designated as a sport or game fish or anything like that yet. I mean, we're pushing for that,
Mm-hmm.
We just kind of have our own little thing. Like, you get a double digit, like that's a good thing.
Yep.
So hopefully soon, DWR, they love them. They're big fans of them. So, just hopefully down the road that we'll get some kind of acknowledgement and some kind of be able to be recognized as like a game fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it used to be a lot easier back in the day to fish for them, but we have a lot of bow fishermen that around here, and they'll you could tell the next morning, and the hydrilla, everything's all broken up and floating on the water that they were back there. The first area that I ever caught them or not caught them, but went out for them in my little 10-foot Pelican. That used to be one of the best areas, and it's not so good anymore. But you see, pictures of them online, and they got 50 on, laid out on the ramp that they shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a bummer, but they're still out there. I mean, they're still out there. I mean, they if you just see how big their row is like this big, like 2 big sacks of that, and majority of those I'm sure will survive more than probably any of the other species, and they grow really fast, and so and they do it twice a year, so they just will probably move to other areas. Like I said, they like to go up as high as they can go to get away from any of that stuff. So,
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And
now,
it makes another thing that makes it a little bit more difficult. Like right now, the carp are, dating, if you will, carp and gar. And they're really noisy, and so usually when I go out there, like I think that's snakehead moving. No, it's not them. So if I go out and I'm like, I go out to Quantico and I'll fish quite a bit, and when I at the ramp and I hear them frolicking around, I'm like, oh yeah, not gonna fish there. I'm out of there.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the bow fishermen. So like, do you think that's just part of just people just doing that for like a sport type thing? Do you think people have like started up like targeting snakehead as just like competition fishing? Is it just for fun?
Charters.
What?
There's charters targeting snakehead for them.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Unfortunately, they've gotten a little bit better. Like some people were, you'd find dead snakehead or bass, with holes in them, or carp or gar. I'm like, if you're not gonna harvest it, don't shoot it. Like
right, yeah.
It just but we can't stop them yet. I mean, yet. We'll see what happens. It's disheartening to see, but
sure.
There is still plenty of fish in the water. It's just they're destroying some of the good areas that people have found or enjoy fishing. But it just keeps you moving, it's like you're fishing a new lake. You got to go figure out where the fish are.
Right.
Techniques are the same. You just gotta gotta fish that out. So, and when people ask, where can we find them, we just lift any of the tributaries on the Potomac, because it is kind of sacred, where if you found a good spot, you don't want to kind of give that up, because as soon as the boat find it, it's
they're gonna
clean
it out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
And you mentioned braid. You're running pretty good sized braid, I imagine.
Yeah, I used to run 50-pound braid, pretty much on every reel. So I strictly do, mono backing to braid. And then if I need fluoro, I run fluoro, because the majority of the stuff I'm fishing is, through some, a lot of SAB, a lot of hydrilla and pads. After I caught that double digit on 17-pound fluoro, I was like, you know what? I'm throwing on 20-pound braid. So that's what I throw. I have not had any issues with it. When you catch a snakehead, obviously it's super shallow. The hydrilla could just be a couple inches under the surface of the water. Once you catch that, they're diving down and they're death rolling in that. Mm-hmm. So you do have to have, some good, healthy, strong braid or thick fluoro, whatever you want to use, just something really strong. And because when you pull up a double-digit snakehead, you're probably pulling up the same amount of hydrilla that's wrapped around your, all your stuff in it too. So yeah, you want to make sure that you don't lose that. And once you catch one, retie, because you don't know what nicked that at all. So
And you mentioned using your frogging rod too. Is it usually like a heavy action rod?
Yeah.
Or
Well, it's a medium heavy. Yeah.
Medium heavy. Okay.
Yeah. That my frog rods are cash and medium heavy.
Medium. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I don't do any heavy rods. I carpal tunnel.
Gotcha.
So,
I hear you.
yeah. Sometimes you see me like I just holding the rod, like I can't hold it anymore. I'm like, my wrist. And...
Girl, it's a 15-minute procedure now
Wow.
to get that fixed.
Oh, I know, but I was supposed to get it done February 21st. I was all set to go, and I waited all day the day before to have my for them to call me for my time. I've had this one, my right side done.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't go very well. I still have the issues. So I went to an actual a guy that like a lot of people I know have gotten it through him, but he's an actual hand surgeon. So he would do like a mini open, so a little laparoscopic, and then just here, not all the way up in my hand.
Yeah.
And so I was supposed to go last year at a tournament pop up, so I had to cancel. I said, well, I'll do it in the fall, and then work got in the way, and then so I had it for February 21st of this year. And then I waited for them to call me the day before with my time, and I didn't hear back by like 2:30 p.m. So I called them, and they're like, "Oh no, it's March 21st." So I was like, "Well, never mind, because that's pre-spawn, and so I'm just gonna have to wait till winter." So
right, yeah, like yeah,
it's
took
like fishing season or work.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it took me longer of waiting around and for them to take me back into the room than the actual procedure. But yeah, just a quick little incision, like right there, and then I had immediate relief, like after the numbing wore off.
Yeah,
it was awesome. Totally.
I'm excited to do it this way. Like he just did the small one on this one, a different doctor, and I had relief like for a little while after, but like I can't hold a spinning reel very long. I guess like
I'm starting to get it in my other hand though.
Shoulder. Yeah. So I throw mostly bait casters, and I right hand bait caster, but when I'm holding it, I'm palming the reel. Just that motion like this is trying to hold it like that. Just I'm like all the time you'll see me like shaking it out. Or like that. Like that, just doing that.
Yeah. I was so glad when I got all that done, because like I was gonna have my shoulder surgery last year, and I was like, well, might as well get everything else done. So yeah, I'm glad I did.
I know. And Amanda Brannon, one of the founders of Women's Fishing Federation, she just had some pretty crazy, surgery going on. So yeah, she's been having issues with that for a while, but.
Yep.
Good, yeah, and I had tennis elbow like a lot for last year, I think. And I think it was like last year. And I was like, I don't even play tennis. I fish.
It's like a common thing when it comes to like fishing is tennis elbow.
Yeah.
Just that repetitive cast motion. Yep.
Yeah. It was brutal. I hated that.
We're all falling apart.
I know. Seriously. Oh boy. But, so Sean, you live in the area. Have you never caught a snakehead?
I've never. Yeah, I have not yet caught one. So I've had a few people offer me to go down. Because like I said, where I am on Susquehanna, they're not up.
Right. Where are you at?
York. Or like the York, PA, So above the Conowingo Dam, supposedly is kind of where they haven't made it up prevalent up past there.
Yeah.
So, but I could probably drive maybe 40 minutes south and be in areas where I could catch them. I just haven't.
Yeah, hit me up anytime. I'm happy to take you out.
Okay, I'll have to take you up on that sometime. Yeah. So I appreciate that offer. So.
I love getting people. I mean, I don't even need to fish when I go out. I'm just happy to see that excitement when someone gets one. So.
Oh yeah. I
like to watch them score. I'm like, what do I do next?
I was telling Susie I was hoping to catch one when we went down to the Chesapeake for that to the bay for that tournament. Yeah. I think one other person caught one but didn't get it landed. Like it came off as he was going to net it. but he was saying he's like, it wouldn't even fit on my catch board. You know, it was
Yeah.
just huge. I was like, oh, that's
That's
awesome.
a dragon then. That's a
Yeah.
dragon.
Yeah.
Well, if it's the catch carbonate, which is it's 33 inches or something.
Yeah.
Like
So.
yeah.
But yeah, very cool. So.
Yeah. Super fun.
Yeah. Well, so thanks so much for coming on. We wanted to give you a chance to shout out your social media, like where folks can find you. I'll definitely include links to the Northern Snakehead groups and the recipes group, if that's cool with you.
Yeah.
But if anybody wants to follow along with you specifically, where can they find you?
It's Cilla Johnson Fishing. Excuse me. It's Cilla Johnson. My name is Priscilla. Just people would call me Patricia or everything else, Petunia. So I just kind of shorten it. So we go Cilla Johnson Fishing. Is pretty much all my social media. It's easy. Yep, and I fish a lot of the national trails here and there. Obviously work with Susie a lot with WFF. And we have a exciting event going on again this year. Last year we were in Lake Fork, Texas. The year before, when I got to meet Susie in person, was La Crosse, Wisconsin, from Mississippi.
Yes.
That was sponsors: Dugout Bait and Tackle, whoop, whoop. Jackson Kayaks, obviously, super fun folks. I just signed this year with Pure Fishing, representing Abu Garcia, Plano, and Berkeley. Also with Torquedo, love my Torquedo. Yak Attack, Rogue Gear, used to be Rogue Fishing. We are now Rogue Gear. So awesome phone tethers, cash and rods, Z-Man, Real Snot, Power Pole. That's it.
That's a good list.
Yeah. Impressive.
Yeah, thanks.
Awesome.
I should have just looked at my shirt.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Susie,
And
did you
if
have
anybody out there is listening, and you guys want to, if you're going to be in the area, DC, Maryland, Virginia, and you guys are interested, like, feel free to hit me up on social media. I'm happy to take you guys out. Don't go pay for charters or whatever. I'm happy to take you out. I get a kick out of getting people on their first naked. So
Awesome.
very cool.
Yeah.
So, Susie, did you have any other questions?
I don't think so. Yeah, that pretty much covered it all.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, so thanks so much for coming on. We totally appreciate it. I'm definitely pumped to go try that now. I just gotta stop making excuses and actually get down there.
Let's do it. Yeah. Next month I'll be Garden Fry. We can get on them.
All right. So
perfect. Thanks, guys, for having me on. This was a lot of fun. Susie, go kettle it tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah. Good luck tomorrow, Susie.
That's right.
And I should have got you to play me some Elton John on that piano.
I know, right? Our other side, yeah. We'll send tomorrow.
Perfect. All right, guys.
Alrighty, guys. Yes, thank you. Thanks for tuning in, guys, to another episode of Bass Fishing for Noobs here on the Paddle and Fin podcast, where we bring you the techniques, the tricks, and the tips to help you rip more lips. You guys have a good night.
Have a good night.
Bye.